Our next speaker is Graham Fraser, who was recently appointed Commissioner of Official Languages in Canada. And before entering this new phase of his career, Graham Fraser is a very well-known journalist and writer in Canada with close to 40 years of journalistic experience. And in fact, I happen to know personally that 40 years began with the varsity newspaper at the University of Toronto because we were there at the same time. Mr. Fraser is author recently of Sorry, I Don't Speak French, which is not true in his case, a book which appeared in 2006 and which has helped stimulate a new public discussion of language policy in Canada. And that's what he's going to talk to us about today.
Thank you very much, Mary-Louise. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, good afternoon. Il me fait grand plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui pour aborder ce sujet que je trouve fascinant.
This topic I find fascinating.
I'd done the arithmetic before of the time we had available, and arithmetic never having been my strong point, wrote a 20-minute speech. So I've been spending part of the time since lunch slashing portions of it, but so that if I have miscalculated and ended up being cut short, the speech will be available on the Office of Commissioner of Official Languages official website. But I thought it would be useful to nevertheless go over some of the historical issues that shaped Canadian language policy, talk about our legislative tools, and finally a bit about the future of linguistic duality in the context of diversity in a global economy. As you know, Canada is a very large country, 5 time zones, 5,000 kilometers from coast to coast, 3,000 miles. That, in contrast with New Zealand, that has meant some complications for introducing a uniform language policy. We're also a relatively decentralized federation. Federal and provincial jurisdictions have different responsibility. The provinces have responsibility for education, health, and social services, whereas the federal government has responsibility for the money, foreign policy, the military, and coordinating responsibilities for social policies. And each government is free to enact laws in its own areas of jurisdiction, and that, of course, includes language. Le français est la langue maternelle de 23%
is the mother tongue of 21% of French, or 23% of French people. This is a greater amount of francophones than we have in Belgium and Switzerland together. Quebec is the only province in which they are a majority, the francophones, and among the 6 million francophones in Quebec, around 4 million are monolingual French.
Fact worth remembering about Canadian language policy that although there are 9 million Canadians who speak French, 7 million in Quebec, 4 million Canadians are unilingual French speakers.
However, Quebec also has a significant proportion of around 1 million Anglophone. Three-quarters of them live in Ontario and New Brunswick, the ones outside of Quebec. New Brunswick has a third of the population. So with that, you can see the great diversity and distribution of the Francophone population in Canada. One of the things that I've discovered is that even if the minority population in Canada are not big, they're very active and they're vital. They're vibrant. I think also that it is important to underscore that there are around 1.7 autochthonous people in Canada. Let's say 3.8% of the Canadian population. These individuals speak some 50 different languages. The majority are in danger of disappearance. Further, the majority of these languages have no official status. At the same time, in the Northwestern Territories, there are 11 official languages that are currently recognized. In Nunavut and Inuit are recognized on the same level as French and English as official languages in that territory. It is high time that the different levels of government work together in order to ensure the survival of these languages for the future generations of Indigenous peoples.
The cultural and linguistic duality that exists throughout Canada can create tension and has in the past led to conflict. We've managed to navigate through it, but it's been sometimes nerve-wracking and resulting in occasional last-minute political compromises. Respect for both English and French was a critical part of Canada's colonial history and an essential element of the compromise that led to Confederation in 1867. It was also a key to the expansion of Confederation to include Canada's western provinces, Manitoba in 1870 and Saskatchewan and Alberta in 1905. Unfortunately, that promise was broken, and for over a century, French was suppressed in a number of English-speaking provinces. This was a state of affairs that was described by Canadian novelist Hugh MacLennan as Two Solitudes, and the title of his novel, which provided Canadians with a lasting metaphor for French-English relations. But in 1960, when only 3% of English-speaking Canadians outside Quebec spoke French, MacLennan made an impassioned plea for bilingualism. Quote, "The matter is so important to our national existence that the most radical plans should be considered for improving the situation."